Which ones do you have? I know that you have some issues with my 12 here. Your thoughts? Where do you want to go?
I'm not going to waste our time yelling about the G5 stuff because that's just that nobody cares. Missouri. I really don't think that Missouri or Penn State get in. I just don't. I think that.
Let me give you well, first off, I disagree with you on. I don't think that many SEC teams get in.
Okay. Well, let's have this conversation then.
Okay.
How many did you have? You had 4?
I had 4. Joe, the reason I put in 4 is mainly due to. Are you really going to put in 5 SEC teams?
I think that the way that the schedule shapes up, and we did all these previews, I don't think a lot of these teams have a lot of intersection of playing one another. So there's more than a lot of capability for 4 10-2 or not 4 10-2 teams. And undefeated Georgia,
could be 4 10-2 teams. This is what happened last year. You can have that.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is an undefeated Georgia and then either 3 10-2 teams and a 9-3 or 4 10-2 teams. There's a lot of capability for that to happen. I would be really stunned if with some of these marquee games in the schedule, and I've always recently especially, I have agreed with you that the SEC plays a harder schedule. For some reason, Big Ten fans want to ignore that. I think that they're going to value that when making a decision between a 10-2 Penn State team and I put Alabama in there. A 10-2 Alabama is way more impressive, especially if they beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin to prove, hey, we're much better at playing your schedule than you are at playing yours.
I just can't. I can't see them doing 5. I really can't. I don't see a world where they leave 3. They only put in 2 Big Ten teams. I just can't. I mean, and that's just where I'm at. The reason I put Penn State in there, I think they have a favorable schedule. Okay, I think that they can go 11-1 at worst, 10-2, because they are better than everybody else that they're going to face. Joe, there's a strong likelihood because of their schedule they can be 11-1. Michigan's not on that schedule. It's only Ohio State. So the bottom line is, Joe, are you going to leave out a 10-2, 11-1 Penn State team? Are you going to keep out the third best team in the Big Ten? And here's another thing. For a team that in the SEC that might be 10-2, 9-3, right? That's the problem that I have. Now, would you put in a Bama over them? Clearly, they showed us that they will do that last year. But I don't see a world where you have a 10-2 Penn State team, and Joe, I have them at 11, right? Or correct me if I'm wrong. No, I have them
at 11.
Yeah, I have them at 11. I mean, I barely have them out of the playoff here. So, you're going to have to convince me that they won't win 10 games, and then you're going to have to convince me that a committee wouldn't put in a third Big Ten team.
I think that if they go 11-1, they do make the field. But I have a lot more concern for how shaky their defense could be this upcoming year. As we talked about in the preview, as we talked about in the Big Ten preview, I'm not super bullish. Yes, their schedule shapes up for them to have a really good season, but we've seen James Franklin falter in the past. And this roster is not as good as it was last year. Last year was the year for them to maybe go on a run.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Who did they falter to?
Not last year, but I don't remember their schedule enough.
They lost to Michigan and Ohio State.
I remember what their schedule was last year, but last year was an exception for how rare their roster was. That was the best roster that we've seen at Penn State in the whole time that James Franklin's been there. I mean, do you trust James Franklin to get through his entire schedule with a weakened defense and a weakened offensive line, a completely new offensive line, to go 10-2 impressively enough that they would deserve a spot in the playoff over a 10-2 SEC team? I don't disagree with your logic. I think it makes sense that they're going to sit there and say, well, should we put in another Big Ten team?
Well, and it's not even that.
Bad logic, though.
I disagree with you. I think they're more talented than 10 of the 11 of the 10 teams that they're going to face. And
Alabama's better than them.
Who?
Alabama's better than them, and that's the last Alabama team.
What did I just say? What just came? Can you repeat what came out of my mouth?
You said that they're better than the teams that they're playing.
Okay. So what do we know about James Franklin literally the last 3 years? They're going to lose to Michigan. They're going to lose to Ohio State. That is the rigmarole that they find themselves in. Well, one of those teams they're not playing, Joe. They don't play Oregon. They don't
now they have USC.
Joe, who's more talented, Penn State or USC? Let's be real. You want to talk about cold weather? Let's talk about cold weather then.
I don't think. Well, no, they go to USC.
USC, okay. I don't think USC's more talented than them. Sorry, they're not.
We don't want to.
That offensive line, running game. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. I like Drew Allar going into a year 2 with a new OC. I'm sorry, Joe. There's no way that they're not more talented. Now, James had times people say, oh, he's overrated. He's overrated. Well, he lost to multiple playoff teams the last 4 years, Joe. I mean, the team, let's just be real. The teams that he's losing to are playoff teams, title contenders. Like, what are we discussing here?
That he's overrated and that they are overrated.
No, you know what he is? He's properly rated.
Yeah, mediocre, slightly above average.
No, I'm sorry to tell you this. If you lose to playoff and title contending teams, that's not as big of a miss as you're making it out to be.
Failing to meet expectations absolutely is a miss.
That's what overrated is.
Failing to meet expectations is
what is their
Issue.
expectations?
To win the Big Ten.
Okay,
that is the hope to win the Big Ten.
Explain to me the last 20 years of Joe Paterno. The last 15 years. They weren't
that fan base that fan base expects them to be in that conversation at the very least.
They are in the conversation, Joe. They're in the playoff.
I just can't get behind this. I think that this team is significantly weakened from last year. I really do. And if they went 10-2 last year, I get that their schedule lightened up a little bit. With a weaker roster, they're not going to go 11-1 with an easier schedule. I find it hard to believe that they're not going to slip up to somebody. And USC is a tougher opponent than I think you're giving them credit for.
Yeah, because we play them week 1. My team plays them week 1. What have I been saying about USC this entire time?
Well, okay. This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/trainingcamp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.